Hi there, everybody. My name is Michael Lay, and today I will be joined by my buddy Will right here.
Hey everybody, my name is Will.
And Will will help me demonstrate the various parts or components of the skeletal system. Skeleton Will right here, folks. Alrighty. So Will right here, as I mentioned, is representative of our skeletal system, and the skeletal system can be divided into two sort of sections. You've got your appendicular skeleton. I can demonstrate it right here, which comprise your appendages, and the bones articulate your appendages with your axial division. So axial division composes the skull, ribs, sternum, vertebrae, and your sacrum and coccyx. And yeah, so today I will also be discussing different types of bones as I go ahead and name them. So the skull right here, we'll start with the major flat bones. So flat bones are obviously flat. The scapula and the ilium are also examples of flat bones, but there are major flat bones in the skull. So you've got your parietal bone starting from the dorsal section right here. Dorsal superior section is your parietal bone. Your frontal, of course, frontal is your frontal bone. You've got your temporal bone, which is this sort of circular flat bone right here. Behind that is the occipital bone. And just in front of the temporal bone is the sphenoid bone right here. And deep to all of that is the ethmoid bone. The ethmoid bone is actually an example of a pneumatized bone, and pneumatized bone consists of holes, air pockets, it's relatively hollow. So we've talked about flat bones and now pneumatized bone. Let's talk about sutures. So sutures are sort of like, I'm trying to on the camera right here. Yep. Sutures right here are sort of like what I think are like sewing lines, but sutures essentially connect the major flat bones of the skull. There are a couple different types of sutures right here. This is the coronary suture, separating the front and the back, the parietal bone and the frontal bone. It's got your um, can't quite demonstrate it. There we are. You got your sagittal suture separating the left and the right parts of the parietal bone. You've also got your squamous suture actually, which makes up the border of your temporal bone. Squamous suture. And then you've also got your uh lambdoid, lambdoid suture, um, separating the occipital bone from the parietal bone. Some other major components of the skull include the zygomatic bone, which mostly makes up your cheek and sort of the lower portion of the eye sockets. Zygomatic bone, moving in front into the bottom, is your maxilla, and then of course you got your nasal bone, and just inside this nasal cavity you'll find the vomer. Got your teeth, which are bones themselves, and then you got your mandible right here, otherwise known as your jawbone. There's also a sort of sharp projection right here. As you can see, it's at the end of the skull, right at the top there, right there at my fingernail. That's the styloid process of the skull. A little bit more about the skull. I also forgot to mention uh, the lacrimal bone right here. So your eye socket right here consists of the sphenoid, the ethmoid bones, as well as a little bit of the zygomatic bone, but also at the very, very inner part is the lacrimal bone. So that's your skull. And moving from superior to inferior down along the axial skeleton, remember that, is your vertebra. There are 7 cranial vertebrae going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Below that are your thoracic vertebra. There are 12 of them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And just a note, the thoracic vertebra are attached to your ribs, all of them. And a particular note about ribs 11 and 12, these are known as floating ribs. These floating ribs right here are called that because they don't quite articulate with either each other or the sternum. Talking about the sternum, there are 3 main ones right here. There's the manubrium, the body, and the xiphoid process. And actually, another part of the axial skeleton I forgot to mention is, of course, your not scapula, sorry, is your clavicle here, which is the most often broken bone. Um, among people. And finally, the last two components are the sacrum and coccyx. So that's your axial skeleton. Now we'll move on and talk about the appendicular skeleton, appendages, appendicular. So this comprises of your arms and your legs, as well as the bones that articulate those with the axial skeleton. These include your scapula right here for the arms, as well as the acetabulum, which is where the hip joins with the leg. Acetabulum, acetabulum. I know how to spell it. I can't say it. And then there is of course, the ilium, the ischium right here, and then the pubis right here. So those are the connecting portions of your appendicular skeleton. I also would like to mention the acromion right about here, which consists of your shoulder joint. So the shoulder joint consists of your clavicle, scapula, your humerus, and the acromion. Let's talk about the different long bones. Then we'll get to the short ones. So long bones of the body are let's start with the arm one, the arm, which is the humerus. And in anatomical position, it's your ulna on the central section, and then the radius, of course, on the outside or the lateral, which is lateral to the ulna. So ulna inside, radius outside. Got your carpal bones, which are your wrist bones. These are short bones. They are obviously very short. They're not long. Then you got your phalanges and your metaphalanges that make up the rest of your hand. There are metaphalanges and distal phalanges, which go from proximal to distal in that order. So that's the arm and the hands. Now let's move on to the legs. This large long bone right here is is the femur. Then you get to the knee. Part of the knee joints is the patella. The patellar bone is actually patella bone, pardon me, is a sesamoid bone. There are only a couple sesamoid bones. These are small, circular. There's a sesamoid bone, and then there's a pisiform bone up here in your carpal region. Sesamoid bones, more long bones now. So this one right here is the tibia. Lateral to that is the fibula. Moving down into the ankle now, we've got your tarsal bones, not to be confused with your carpal bones, carpal hand, tarsal feet, and of course you got your phalanges as well. Phalanges are also examples of long bones. All right. And just to recap, I've covered the different parts of the axial skeleton. Again, your skull, vertebra, ribs, sacrum coccyx, and then the appendicular skeleton. And I've also talked about the different types of bones. So we've got long, short, flat, long, short, flat, structural bones, irregular bones, which are your vertebrae, I'm mentioning now, and the sesamoid bone right here. And that pretty much covers all of my little buddy Will right here. Um, yeah, I'm gonna put him down a moment. And so lastly, I'd like to describe how bones relate to my future career. So I was recently accepted to an osteopathic medical school program. And of course, osteo comes from the word bone. So the principle behind osteopathic medicine is that it's a holistic approach to medicine that where you treat different parts of the body without the aid, or naturally, without the aid of medication for the most part, optionally with medication. So an example of an osteopathic procedure would be the straightening of one's back. So, or the straightening of one's back and vertebra. So an osteopathic medical doctor or a DO might even sort of place pressure at the ends of your irregular bones, your vertebrae right here. Move it a little bit left and right. Have the person do a couple of motions while applying pressure to these vertebra rather, and hopefully that would even strengthen and straighten one of the vertebra. Yeah, that's an application of osteopathic medicine with relation to the skeletal system. And that concludes my presentation. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you have a lovely day. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel, like videos, subscribe to my channel, and take care now. Bye bye.